It's not a secret that Michael Jordan and Isiah Thomas have never liked each other. They both dominated the Eastern Conference during one of the most physical eras in NBA history. Yet they never shared a kind word for the other. Thomas has constantly taken shots at Jordan and claims he's not the greatest player of all time.
Well, I know it's all bullshit.
And his airness didn't shy away from that controversy during his documentary.
There's no way you can convince me he wasn't an asshole.
It all started during the 1985 All-Star Game. Thomas was clearly denying Jordan the ball throughout the event. Then, 7 years later, the Bulls legend addressed and explained the origins of their beef in an interview with Playboy magazine. If you go back and look at the film, you can see that Isiah was actually doing that, Jordan said. Once it started getting around that he was freezing me out, that's when the ill feelings started to grow between us. MJ went on to tell the story of the first time he met Thomas. He admitted to being nervous and that he didn't know how to handle himself in that situation, as Zeke was already an established superstar in the league. That was my first All-Star game. I stayed in my room most of the time because I didn't know what to do, Jordan said. None of my teammates were there. I didn't want to be out in a situation that I wasn't comfortable with. The one time I did go out, I got on an elevator with Isiah Thomas to go downstairs for a league meeting. That was the first time I met him, and I said, "Hello, how you doing?" That's all I said. I was really intimidated because I didn't know him and I didn't want to get on his nerves. I didn't want to seem like a rookie, to just be so stupid. So I was quiet. I stayed in the corner. When I went down in the room for the meeting, I still didn't say anything. After the weekend was over, it got back to me that I was arrogant and cocky and I wouldn't even speak to Isiah on the elevator. That I gave him the cold shoulder, and I'm saying Isiah Thomas initiated it all. In recent hours, Thomas rejected this story, taking to social media to call out the greatest player of all time, saying he's a liar and telling his version of the story. Stop lying. This story is not factual or accurate. Tell the truth, man. Dr. J, Moses Malone, Larry Bird, Sidney Moncrief, and I did not freeze you out. If memory serves me correct, I was injured most of the second half and Bird had a broken nose. Magic and Sampson dominated the game. Pistons and Bulls met right after the All-Star game and Jordan kept receipts. He gave Thomas hell and the media took care of the rest. There was no going back at that point. Normally, I would smile and enjoy myself, but I was serious the whole game. It was a grudge game from my standpoint, Jordan admitted. And the next day, the headlines read Jordan gets his revenge, scores 49. That's all Isiah needed to see. It was a competition from that point. I always tried to respect him and be kind, but I always would hear talk that he was saying things about me behind my back. Their beef continued when the Bulls swept the Pistons in the 1991 Eastern Conference Finals. Jordan looked forward to Detroit showing sportsmanship by shaking his hand and wishing him good luck in the finals since he had done that every time he lost to his Central Division foe. However, before Game 4 ended, Laimbeer told his teammates they weren't going to shake hands with the Bulls players. Ever since that moment, Jordan has lost all respect for Thomas. Their beef escalated during the 1992 Olympics as news came out that Jordan conspired to take out his rival Thomas from the team. Jordan denied having direct involvement in Thomas being left off during the Last Dance documentary.
Now, it was insinuated that I was asking about him, but I never threw his name in. You want to attribute it to me? Go ahead, be my guest. But it wasn't me.
But he previously provided a different version of events to former Sports Illustrated writer Jack McCallum. McCallum has started a Dream Team Tapes podcast with audio clips from old interviews featuring many of the Team USA players from the Barcelona games. In one of the recordings, you could hear MJ talking to Rod Thorne, former chairman of the USA Basketball Men's National Team Selection Committee. Jordan talked on Thomas and the upcoming Olympics.
They called me to ask me to play. Rod Thorne called and said, "Rod, I won't play with Isiah Thomas on the team." He assured me, he said, "You know what? Chuck that one, Isiah. So Isiah's not going to be a part of the team."
Thorne, the executive in charge of building the 1992 Olympic roster, denied Jordan made reference to Thomas. "There was never anything in my conversation with Jordan that had to do with Isiah Thomas, period," said Thorne, who drafted Jordan as the Chicago Bulls general manager in 1984. He said, "I'll do it." Isiah's name never came up during the conversation, and he never backtracked and said he didn't want to do it from that time on. To those of us in the NBA office, Thomas, who in 2000 was voted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility, discussed his feelings on the situation on ESPN's First Take show after the Last Dance episode that featured the circumstances of his snub.
And if that moment meant that I'm not selected to be on the Dream Team because of that moment, that's hurtful. That cuts deep.
It's a shame that two of the greatest two-way players of all time could never get along. But at the end of the day, that hate ignited a competition that eventually brought out the best of both of them. As we learned in recent hours, their rivalry gets richer and more entertaining even years after either of the two has stepped onto a court. Tell us in the comments, do you believe Thomas tells the truth about MJ's freezing in the 1985 All-Star Game?